So we're here to talk about dev mode. So just a quick show of hands, who here has actually used dev mode? Oh, wow. Wow, a significant number of people. So what I'm hoping today is to show you something that you didn't know about. And what I want you to do is I want you to come along and see me at the end and tell me something which you didn't know about, which I managed to show to you today. Because that's what's really important here is that we're sharing what you can do within dev mode to make your lives as developers a lot better, more efficient, and to also save you time. So we know that everyone wants to bring high quality designs to production fast, but it's often a struggle, and there's a number of different reasons for that. The first one is poor alignment and communication. So think about the work that you do today. Think about a situation, especially when you're going through a handoff process where there was a misalignment, miscommunication, or maybe you agreed to something. By the time you got to doing it, actually you're working on the wrong version. You took a screenshot of something, you worked against it, that wasn't actually the correct one to work on. And so you then end up having to redo the work, or worse still, be wasting a lot of time and not actually seeing the end product. The second major reason is also a lack of design system adoption. So by not being able to follow design system practices, what we're seeing here is lower quality releases. And last but not least is the impact on yourselves as developers, like the inefficiencies that this introduces into your jobs. Think about if you had 20% free time today, if you had 20%, what would you do with that 20%? You'd work on a fun project, explore new technology area, maybe do some other fun activity, maybe look after yourself, do some health stuff. Think about that 20% of what you could do. And that's what we want to help achieve here, to really increase that number to give you space to be able to do more fun, interesting things, resolve bugs, scale out systems, instead of working on the task of trying to figure out what you need to implement. The impact on this on the business is very real. So we often see that by not having these in place, we're seeing long delays or significant delays as well for product releases. We're also seeing low quality products being released and also frustration between designers and developers. So this is why Figma has created dev mode. We have at least a third of people signing up for Figma who are actually identifying themselves as developers. One third, that's a significant amount of people using Figma without using anything which is dedicated to developer tools, trying to go into Figma to get more information out of it to help them build a better product. So this is why dev mode was created, a dedicated space for developers to get more information out of the design so they can spend more time coding and developing. That is the beauty around dev mode. It's not for you to spend hours and a long time on the actual product itself. It's for you to be able to focus on making those changes instead of figuring out what changes have occurred. And we believe that dev mode can really achieve this through three significant pillars. So the first one is around org alignment. So just being able to have everything in one single space, a source of truth, really means that everyone can easily collaborate and also be referencing the same area. So there's no ambiguity. Which screen did you talk about? Was it that screen A or was that screen B? Or was it this screenshot? None of that. We can all reference and access the same file. And so that brings a lot more clarity as to what you're talking about and gives you also that opportunity to get the context. You can access the file, you can also see the other screens, you can better understand what is being trying to achieve here as well. The second one is product quality. So really driving and promoting the usage of design systems. So best practices, reusable code, being able to strengthen the ties between designers and a design system, but also developers and a design system, so component code. And last but not least is really around dev efficiencies. How do we make sure, as Scott was mentioning earlier on, that we're bringing a lot of the dev tools that you're using today within the actual product itself. How do we make sure that we're surfacing the right types of information in the way that you expect it so that you can get faster into implementing these changes and making these releases a reality? So these were the kind of three main core areas. Org alignment, so really getting them onto the same page, improving the product quality, and last but not least is the dev efficiency. So I'd like to now go into a live demo. Does anyone want to see a live demo? Yeah? Oh, it's like, come on. Anyone want to see a live demo? All right, here's what I can say in front of you guys versus like a designer, right? Live demos are hard, right? All of you have had to do a live demo. Don't you dare lie to me. I know all of you have had to do it, right? You've had to code something, you've had to quickly put some scrappy thing together, and you've had to run it live in front of an audience. Every single person's done it. Don't tell me otherwise, because at least at university, if you've done like a CS degree or anything or an engineering degree, you had to go and demonstrate it. So this is hard, but I'm gonna make it work, right? And I need all of your support as well. Don't say if you know he said it fails a lot of times as well. I mean, don't say that to me. I haven't even started yet. All right, okay. We're gonna go and change mics because if you've ever tried to do a demo with one hand, it's very, very difficult. All right. So this is not the demo file. So that's a good start. Okay, this is the demo file. All right. So often, like, a designer comes along and says, hey, here's the file, it's ready now, go and work on it. And you're like, okay, I open it up. What's this? What's all this going on here? This like funky stuff. And like, okay, that looks interesting. Am I meant to build this? This is what I'm supposed to build. Oh, wait, there's like some sticky note or some weird scribble. I have no idea what to work on. And so here's what you should be expecting from your designer, right? Because we're also enhancing that handoff process between a designer and a dev. So what a designer can go ahead and do is that they can select a frame or a section or series of frames and mark it as ready for dev. So you see this little icon here. Let me zoom in. So you see this little icon here. Go ahead and click on it, or you can go ahead and select this icon here. And so this marks and gives an indicator that this is ready for dev. So this is what a designer should be doing as part of the handoff process. So let's go ahead and maybe mark a couple more frames as ready for dev. And what we can do here as well is that if I'm a designer, maybe I want to ping a message to my developer. Maybe, this is the frame, which frame, this frame, which frame. This is the frame that I want to talk about. You can go ahead and copy a link. And then if I am a developer, I now select that link. And then straight away, I'm brought into Figma and the frame itself is brought into focus. So this is one of the new releases that we recently introduced, which is the ability to move all of that clutter, move all of that noise out of the way, and to be able to focus on this actual frame that you're looking to implement. And I don't know if you can see it, but maybe I will describe it to you. But here on the bottom right-hand corner is a version history around how the status of that frame has changed. So that means when the designer, they say, oh yeah, it's marked as ready for dev, they send it to you. And then maybe you're like, okay, I put it in my to-do and I'll get to it like tomorrow afternoon. So it looks like this way right now. You're like, okay, I know how much time it'll take. I'll put it aside. And then you get to it, everything has changed. So then you're like, well, then I now need to have another like sync up or anything else. This is the golden nugget here. This will tell you who has changed it, when they changed it, why they changed it. All of that information is here. And I think that's one of the best features. They don't do the sneaky attacks on you anymore. They can't get around it, right? This is the way that you can get them. You can say like, I've got a track record of it. I can see it. It's a good one. All right. So that's one of the kind of key areas. The second one, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to enable dev mode. So this little toggle here. Actually, you see that icon there? Look at that. Look how amazing that icon is. We should try and take that back to the office. Okay, we're gonna try and take that. Look how amazing that icon is. So it looks like that. So here in the new interface is in the bottom center here. For those folks at the back, you might not be able to see it, but it's right at the very bottom. But if you're using the current interface, it's here, the top right-hand corner. So it looks similar to that icon over there. Can everyone hear me okay, or is it like cutting in out? Okay, cool. So I'm going to go into dev mode, and what you will see here is a bunch of annotations and measurements being called out. So again, this is the designer's responsibility. The designer should be putting these on the actual screens, on the frames themselves, to help you as a developer better understand this design file. So that means if there's any context that they need to share with you beyond what you can see and what you can inspect, this is how they should be doing it. And the reason for that is because you have a lot on your plate. So if you have to go keep switching between different documents and everything else, like it's so troublesome, right? Why not have it all in one place, making it really easy for you to get a lot more information, more contextual information out of this design. And you'll notice as well is that when I zoom in or like bring into focus a certain frame, the annotations and measurements, they automatically surface. So it reduces the clutter for you again, and then only surfaces the right information at the right time to help you better build this out. All right, we are still in dev mode. And so putting on the developer hat, if you have never seen dev mode before, but I think there's only like a couple of people, but I'll just explain it very, very quickly. If you start click on it or hovering over certain parts of the design and different parts of the elements, you'll start to see like spacing, padding information, dimension information, access to the assets. And then you'll also start to see variables being used as well. So design tokens. So variables in Figma and design tokens in code. So these start to surface and make themselves readily available to yourselves as developers to really give you the right information for helping you better build this out. You'll notice that on the right-hand side, we also start to see different pieces of information which may be useful for us. So we can also see code snippets. So later on, we'll kind of cover like the differences or the different ways in which you can have code represented here. But these are the default ones that we support within the product itself. So these snippets of code are great for building out these parts of the design from scratch, but they don't necessarily promote the design system. So later on, we'll kind of touch upon that around how we can enhance that process. So do you want to know my favorite feature? So this is the one, like, this is the golden one, like, which I absolutely love. So if you click on a particular frame that you're developing and you go ahead and click on compare changes, who here has used compare changes? Compare changes? Only one, two people, three people. Wow, this one's going to be the one, all right? So when you click on compare changes, what this does is that it shows you the current version here on the right-hand side. So this is the one that's in the design file right now. And then it gives you the capability of looking at the previous iterations of that actual design. So what that means is that you can focus on making the changes instead of trying to guess what the changes are. So the designer's like, hey, here's a new thing. And you're like, I don't see a difference. Like, what's the difference? Like, what's actually changed? You don't need to go through that discussion point. You can easily select this and then be able to compare changes. Absolutely. This is such a good feature. Imagine the amount of time this will save you. My goodness. So the way that this works is that it puts it side by side, allows you to go through the layers, and it will go through each parts of those design. It will highlight them, and then it will surface that to you. You can see what the snippet of code looks like that you need to change, or the property dimension information, which also needs to be updated. So this is a relatively basic, because this is a demo file, of course, this is a relatively basic one. But just imagine like the complexities of the files which are shared out to you and how much of an impact this would have on your day-to-day activities. So in addition to that, you can also select overlay in the bottom left-hand corner here, and you can easily move this slider to kind of see the two frames on top of one another to give you a different perspective of identifying and seeing those changes. So I absolutely love this feature, and I hope you will too as well. The second thing which I wanted to also highlight, just moving quickly to a different demo file, is the ability to also access a playground. So you see here, when I select this particular component, I can see information about that component, also a description which a designer can add to kind of give you a bit more information as a developer. Any kind of component documentation is also listed here. And then yourselves as developers, you can also add your own resources or your own links directly here as well. So if I go ahead and select Open in Playground, it gives me this safe sandbox to play around with this component, just to see exactly what it would look like if it had different values set for the property. So what would it look like if we had an icon to the left? And what's great here is that you can play around to your heart's content without affecting the design at all. But it helps you as a developer better understand how to build out this component and the different ways in which you can represent this component. So those are some of like the key capabilities of dev mode. And what I'm really excited about in the next two sessions is how do you apply all of these features in a real world scenario? Like, it's great me showing this to you, but how does that translate into actual practices in which businesses and organizations are actually directly benefiting from this? So the last thing I wanted to show is plugins. Oh, I'll be taking questions at the end, don't worry. I'll be taking questions at the end, don't worry. The other thing I wanted to kind of cover is also plugins. So plugins really extends those capabilities and allows you to customize the workflow. So it really ensures that what you're building is also something where it's in a customizable environment. So we have different sets of plugins, and we have, of course, our good friends at GitHub here who are also going to demonstrate their plugin. But the one that I wanted to quickly show is Jira, because Jira, as a different type of plugin, allows you to put into place a different like task management directly within Figma itself. So if you click out onto the canvas, what you'll be able to see is a list of different issues, but these descriptions are only as great as just being listed down here. But if I go ahead and click change button to blue, it takes me directly to where that issue or task was generated, as well as all the necessary information to help aid me to be better building this out. So this is a quick example of one of the plugins that we have available, but I would love you to go ahead and play around with it. And then we also support the ability for you to build your own custom private plugins as well. So if you really want to go down to the customization level, or maybe you really want to be able to like customize how it's working, you can do so with the private plugin. So last but not least is also the support for VS Code. So we have a Figma extension, which can be brought into VS Code, and all of that good stuff that I was showing you earlier on can be easily brought into VS Code here, including code snippets, any property information, dev resources, and also the plugins. So you don't even need to leave your VS Code environment, your IDE. You can bring all that great functionality along and then be able to easily access it. So another cool thing here is that we can also have a bit of autocomplete. So if we go ahead here, let's see if this is going to work. Got the atom status bar over here, I think. And then we could do some auto completion like that. So it just makes things a lot easier, speeds things up a bit, and just bring those small life improvements to your job role. So that was dev mode. Great ton of functionality around dev mode. And I would like to bring on stage someone who's going to talk to us about how do we promote component code within a design system. but she said that she's very, very shy. She's extremely shy, and she'll only come out if we can shout something. You're going to help me? You're going to help me out? Okay, we're splitting the room down the middle, right? Look at that. It's almost like they knew that I was going to split it down the middle. We're split down the middle. You guys here, you have to shout out code. And then you guys there have to shout out connect. You understand the instructions? You do code, you do connect. So I'll point to your sections and then you have to say it in unison. Can you do that for me? All right, all right. All right. Is that now? Okay.
All right. Thank you for the warm introduction, Mark. So, my name is Chanel. I'm the solutions consultant here at Figma. I'm at the same team as Mark. So, today, what we are really going to talk about is Code Connect. And very fundamentally, in the last year of speaking with our user and our community, both developers and designers, we realized one fundamental problem and feedback that we get from our community. The first feedback is that as we start to scale as an organization, it gets harder and harder to maintain your product quality, right? When you are a team at a startup phase, you get the ability to really manage your features and really be sure that all your features meet that benchmark of high quality. But then you realize that as you start to scale and your product starts to grow, sometimes it gets harder for you to manage, right? We have so many features. How do you continue to deliver that kind of delightful user experience while maintaining that high level of product quality? And this is where we see design system as the way to really solve the problem. Why is design system important in this aspect? Design system is a way for you to have reusable components, tokens, and variants. And with design system, you are also able to share with your end users how are you able to use these components and elements during the development process. And very often, what we see in organizations that we speak to is that design systems are often developed and churned out by a smaller centralized team within your organization. But the interesting thing is that it is often rolled out in a more scalable way, whereby we will show this design system to both developers and designers working on the same product, right? And here you sort of get two key benefits. Firstly, because both us developers and designers are using the same components, we get a better kind of user experience and better kind of consistency that really speaks to what we stand as a brand and as a business. The second thing is it honestly makes our lives easier. Why I say so is because when you have a repeatable process, when you have reusable components that you can lean into, you sort of prevent the need to reinvent the wheel. You when you look at a frame, right, you start to be able to find out, hey, what are the components that I can actually use, rather than, okay, this is something I'm not sure whether it's in our design system. I'm going to try and draw out my own custom component for you. Therein lies the difficulty of having technical debt, right? As you scale further, it becomes more difficult for you to really update and maintain those. However, the story doesn't end there, right? Having a design system doesn't mean you have achieved everything. In fact, a design system is nothing if you do not have people adopting it. And it is really the success of design system lies on how much you have utilized it as a team and how widely adopted. You might be spending so much time, energy, and resources trying to build out your design system. But at the end of the day, you will also notice that you spend a majority of your time trying to educate and empower your end users on how to use those design systems. Because this is a scenario that we really want to avoid. So I'm just going to invite everyone to take a look at this picture right here. Imagine for a second you have a component, right? It's called a schedule for a pickup button. Notice how many different variations our developers have actually gone ahead to create their own custom component, right? Perhaps they are not aware that there is an underlying component that we can use within the design system itself, or perhaps there is just not enough awareness of this system or architecture in place. So that's the one key message that I would love to share with everyone, which is very often the success of design system is not hinged on whether it is comprehensive. It is hinged whether it is well known, whether users are actually aware of where you are going to in terms of product development. And that's immediate, right? We engineers, we love to code. Rather than going to different documentation to try and find which is the right component, sometimes we just feel like, hey, why not I just code it out myself? But then think about the long term. You might want to think about how much time you will then need to take to come back and maintain those code base. And design systems, therefore, should be the path of least resistance. And because of that, we have launched Code Connect. What is Code Connect? Code Connect is really a way for you to bring your underlying code components into dev mode. And what this means is that when it comes to developing, you no longer need to reinvent the wheel. You are able to really tap into those fundamental underlying components that your design team lead or your design system lead have already figured out for you. So here's an example of how Code Connect can be used on our Swift UI as well as our material design kit. Essentially, what you will see is that when you select a button or a component, for example, Code Connect shows dynamically how the code will look like in the underlying design system. And the really great value add here is that you can then start to copy this and paste it into whichever project that you're already on. Not only do you not have to worry about consistency issue, but think about the amount of time that you actually get to save at the end of the day. So how does this work? There are 3 key steps, and Mark will show more in depth later on. The first step, which is really including a create Code Connect file within your design system repository. And essentially what you're telling it to do is to create connection within Figma components as well as code that you already have in your underlying system. Once you have actually done the connection, this is when you will then publish your Code Connect into your Figma file. And that is when you will be able to see it being reflected within dev mode itself. So earlier on, Mark has shared about dev mode. You will see that when you're in dev mode, you will look at the style components as well as some of the padding and text styles that come along with dev mode. However, text styles and this kind of style codes are only important when you want to start from scratch. Very often, after the component is already built, you actually do not need to lean in on these style components. Instead, what you want Figma to tell you is how can you actually use your underlying design elements and what are the underlying components that you can actually use on the fly within Figma Dev Mode. So now I'm going to pass the mic to Mark to demo how it looks like.
All right. I thought maybe we'll take a bit of time to go through a quick demo of Code Connect. So just give me a second. All right. So when you run Code Connect, what you're essentially doing is you're passing through a component set URL and you're bringing in and creating a new documentation file which has all of the necessary properties from that component set. So this is an example, as you can see on screen, of a file which will be generated based on this specific link to this component set. So if I go ahead and click on it and wait for it to load up, this particular component set is what this particular file is being generated from. And if I go ahead and click on each of the buttons whilst in dev mode, what I will notice here is that Code Connect has already been set up and established, but it's not really showing me a lot of the information which I care about within the Code Connect snippet. So if you keep your eyes focused here on the right-hand side, you'll notice that this line of primary buttons, the button type equals primary, which is great. But when I go ahead and select another type of button, which is this second row here, it goes and changes it to secondary. But what about this type of state, like hover, default press? Maybe I want to be able to surface that in code as well. And so what we're going to do here is that we're going to go and make a quick modification. So this is where you go ahead and you make that kind of example code to be displayed within dev mode. We're just going to make this quick edit. We're going to put it here. We're going to save the file. We're going to push it via the CLI. It's going to take momentarily a bit of time. We'll go back to our file. And now what we see here, if you have a look on the right-hand side, is that the state also now changes based on the type of button. So of course, this is a very, very basic example, but you can imagine that when you go ahead and create something a bit more complex, like this type of screen here, when you're in dev mode and you're clicking on different parts where Code Connect has already been established, you get something a bit more full-fledged and something which is a bit more useful. So this gives you a great opportunity to start or to be able to even copy and paste this directly into your production file. It also gives you an opportunity to get started a lot quicker compared to having to switch over to a different system or tool or somewhere else to be able to find this reusable code. We also know that there are a number of different Android developers here. So in terms of what that looks like on the Android side, utilizing our Material U design kit, this is something which could be represented utilizing Android Compose as well. So hopefully that's given you a good idea of the power of Code Connect and how it can be really leveraged within your Figma dev mode environment, and also how it can really promote reusability of component code. So now I'd like to hand it back to Chanel, who will now cover some of the updates that we've recently launched with Code Connect.
All right, so updates time. The good news is that it is out of beta. And in fact, we are supporting React, React Native, Swift UI, as well as Compose for Code Connect. And we have also at the same time launched our GitHub repository, which is really an open source example of how you are able to see how you can leverage Code Connect with React right here. The next thing you might also want to check out is our simple design system, which is really where you can start to look at best practices and how you can really lean into Code Connect as you start to scale your product design system. And really, we are looking to achieve these 3 benefits for you as a team. Firstly, we want to try and push further to increase your adoption of design system. Really trying to make those hard work worthwhile by making sure that all your designers and developers are aligned on the same page. And through this process, what we really want to drive is to enhance your engineering efficiency. By preventing the need to reinvent the wheel, we allow you to really reuse key components within your underlying system. And in the process, this really enhances your cross-team collaboration, making sure that designers and developers are speaking the same language at the end of the day. And what this means is that as you start to scale, product quality will still be maintained and even improve in the long run. And imagine the amount of time that you actually get to save in the process as well. So, what can we look forward to in the next few months right here? We are constantly trying to improve our product, and we are also looking to launch even more frameworks as we go along here. So I would love to speak to some of you later on what are the key frameworks that you might want to look into, and also think about what are the kind of features that you are also looking to see in the next coming month. Next, at Figma, we are trying to make your lives as smooth as possible as well. So how can we really enhance the setup process and make it faster and smoother as we scale? Lastly, we are going to develop and enhance our plugin APIs. So we are looking forward to the kind of plugins that the team develops going forward.
You don't want to say the last line?
All right, so now it's time to Code Connect.
I thought it was meant to be now it's time to code connect. No? Okay.